Hey guys, welcome back. This is another episode of the Reselling podcast. My name is Mo, and today we're going to be getting back into a few interviews. I wanted to interview a few experienced resellers, and I came across Ryan's channel, Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips, and I wanted to see if we could talk a little bit about reselling and his journey so far. So I'll stop talking and we'll let Ryan give a little background on himself and how he got to where he is.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So yeah, this a little over a year ago, I was selling cars and not really digging it. I'd done it off and on for about 5 years. And I was just looking for a change. And I was scrolling through YouTube and I came across the Gary Vaynerchuk trash to cash stuff. And I was like, man, that looks interesting. So I watched a few more YouTube videos and decided I would give it a shot. And I just started with stuff I had around the house kind of thing and hit a couple sales, and they quickly decided that there was a chance there to make some money. And I'd owned my own business previously, so I had a little bit of that kind of entrepreneurial itch, I guess, if you will. Yeah. So a year ago, the start of October, I went full-time doing it and been doing it ever since.
Wow, you took the plunge pretty fast now.
So yeah, I started part-time in August and I gave 30 days notice at my job the 1st of September. So I went against all the advice that everybody gives, including myself, about, where you think you should be. And I did a lot of, I actually have a video about it, but I did a lot of financial calculations about where I was in terms of savings and investment and, how long could I survive if this was a total disaster? And I mapped out that I could probably go somewhere between a year and 18 months before I really had myself in trouble. And that would give me a really fair shot to see if I could do this and if I enjoyed it. And as it turned out, I haven't had to tap into any of that money. So that's a win.
Awesome. Before I forget, if you could let people know, because you have a podcast and YouTube channel, if you could let them know a little bit about that, just so they know where that is.
Yeah. So Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips, if you search for that on your podcast platform of choice or on YouTube, that's kind of the name of the channel. You can find me on Instagram at Galaxy CDs Rocks, and I've got a website, galaxycdsrocks.com, that of course has links to all the channels and all the socials and all that stuff. So
awesome. Yeah, I've been watching and listening. I've watched some of the YouTube channels, but you have some hauls in there and some really, really good info. So what I want to do here, because I like books. I've sold some books, but I've only ever sold them on Amazon. So I want to know, what's your why? Why books and CDs specifically? I know you sell other than that, but why those two things?
Well, when I first got started, I was on pretty limited capital. I didn't want to dip into savings if I didn't have to. So when I looked at how you could get started in reselling with a limited amount of money, it seemed to me you had two options. You could spend it on a handful of big things and hope for some home runs, or you could buy a bunch of little stuff and kind of, single, double, sacrifice, fly. And the next thing you know, you've got steady kind of daily cash flow. So that's the kind of stuff I was looking for. Smaller, not trying to spend $50 or $100 on an item. And I hit a couple of sales where I was able to do some pretty big buys of, I think the first one I did was like nearly 700 vintage science fiction paperbacks. Wow. That I got for 75 cents a piece. And I was like, at that price, I think I can make some money. And I was in the money within like 3 weeks on that deal. So that kind of got me started with, what else can I find? And it's turned out that, big lots of CDs, books. I bought 5,500 model railroading magazines at one point.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of stuff is available out there at estate sales and whatnot. And so it just kind of by default, based on my business strategy, ended up being the kind of stuff I was sourcing.
Okay. And then in terms of how you source those first big lots there, were you looking at, I guess, when you bought those big lots, were you looking specifically to cherry pick or just get the entire lot? Because sometimes a bulk buy can be kind of scary for people, but it seems like you just kind of jumped in and grabbed the entire thing.
Well, like on that science fiction one, I looked at maybe half a dozen items out of it. And everything I pulled up was more than $12. So, and that, I know that doesn't sound like big money, but thinking about getting them for under $1 a piece,
Yeah.
like, that's probably profitable. And they wanted like, I think they were asking $3 a piece for them. So I just went up front to the guy and I said, "Hey, what's the story on this room full?" I mean, it was literally a small bedroom full of these science fiction books. And I said, "What's the deal on them? What would you take if I just carted them all out of here for you?" And, he talked with his partner and whatever, and they came back with 75 cents a piece. And I said, "Let me go to the bank and get some money. Give me a total." So he and I went in there and counted them up and came up with a number, and I carted them all home. And, there have been several in there that were worth $60 and $70 a piece. So
Wow.
like I said, real quickly, I was back in the money.
Nice, nice, nice. And I watched one of your previous videos. You had a book that you pulled. Maybe this is sold, maybe it hasn't. So the history of the Middle Ages. Did that ever sell?
Yes.
I'm just know what it went for.
No, it's still here.
Okay.
I've had a few like that, I haven't done a ton of the like haul videos. That's something I want to work on going forward, but that was one that I highlighted. And of course I jinxed it. It's still sitting here, but
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about book selling other than I've done some on Amazon, and basically you just scan, 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 and you don't really get. I've never, at least me, I've never got high price ones. But there's an old movie I watched. It's called The Ninth Gate. And
right.
it's with Johnny Depp. He's a bookseller. Is there anything like that in terms of, I should say, a holy grail that you're looking for when it comes to books? Is there something that booksellers in general, when you're buying individual books, are looking for?
There's not like one like unicorn book that I'm after. I look for old Bibles and religious books. Those seem to have really good value. Anything like pre maybe 1970, and just old books in general. Anything prior to say 1980, not kind of the mass market popular fiction stuff. And the older and weirder, the better, because obviously that's stuff that's in fairly low supply. So those tend to just naturally be worth a little more money.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I love the idea of the treasure hunt is always good. I don't really sell that many books, but that whole thing, finding a dusty old book that looks like nothing and is worth a lot. That's the coolest thing. So I
Right.
guess
When I go into a sale, I'm kind of approaching it from two angles. I'm looking to cherry pick
okay,
what's there to start. Here's one, because they're wanting, $1, $2, $5 a piece, whatever it is. But I'm also looking at the whole collection. So is it a bunch of romance books and cookbooks and stuff that just isn't going to move, or is it history or science fiction or something that's really interesting that I'd be willing to make an offer on?
okay,
In a lot of cases, I'll pull a big stack of books, and as I'm buying them, I'll say to the guy, "Hey, what would you take for the whole stack? Or when the sale is over, what kind of price would you do for me to just clear it out for you?" And that's how I end up with, you know, 800 book lots sitting in my garage.
I'm just wondering, just because I go to a lot of Garces too, just the idea of you taking away all those books, clearing out that space for them, might be part of
Oh
um,
yeah.
the lure of getting a better price. I mean, I've done that
Yep.
before with other types of things, and then
I've one estate seller that on two occasions has called me, late on a Monday afternoon and said, "Hey, we're trying to get this house cleared out from the sale. If you'll come get these books, you can just have them." And I'll
nice,
go and get, 3, 4, 500 books for the price of a tank of gas. So yeah, if, once you do that a few times and you get known with the estate sellers, sometimes they'll reach out to you. And, like I said, on multiple occasions, I've gotten pretty good hauls for nothing.
nice, nice. And then, I mean, I know it sounds like you're taking everything. Are there some books you obviously avoid or try not to pick up, or a genre of book maybe?
Yeah, I don't do like contemporary romance, like Harlequin romance, paper
Got it.
books, that kind of stuff. Um, Mass market, popular fiction, Tom Clancy, Clive Cussler. They're great books. They're fun to read, but everybody's already got them. So there's no value in them.
Yeah,
If they happen to come in a lot that I want because there's other stuff there, I'll figure out what to do with them. But that's stuff that I would not, if I'm at a house and that's kind of what the collection is, I'm not trying to buy it all.
Wow, that makes sense. There's only so much room, only so much you want to list. And then you've actually sourced quite a bit of older books. Some of them might not have been in the best condition. Have you
Right.
ever sold something, maybe a high price book, but I guess the buyer ended up thinking that the condition wasn't great, possibly, or maybe something happened in the mail. Have you ever dealt with that? Or
No, if you look at my listings, for starters, I grade pretty conservatively. So if it's very good, I probably call it good,
okay,
just safe. And I take, you've got 12 free pictures. So I'm taking a picture of the front, the back, the spine, all three leading page edges, a sampling of the pages within the book. And then if I see anything, a page that's torn or there's underlining or anything like that, I put all that in the description. So I disclose everything up front. So a buyer already knows kind of what they're getting. And, if you look at any book listed on eBay, there's, the first half a dozen of them, a lot of times don't even have any pictures. There's no there's a title and that's it.
yeah,
So when you get down to mine, I may be $4 or $5 higher, but I got 12 pictures and a great description and all the item specifics. And, which one are you going to buy? The one that you know what you're getting, or, the grayed out
exactly.
stock photo of nothing.
Exactly. Those stock photos. Yeah, I'm a big believer in not using stock photo unless you're desperate to.
Right.
People talk about the white background as well. I mean, that's good, but not 100% of the time. So yeah, no, I'm with you there. And then with shipping, shipping is always. I mean, obviously we have to do it. Have you ever had to deal with shipping very heavy book boxes, or maybe pallets, or maybe just something that was awkward? And how did you deal with that?
Nothing bigger than, maybe a 30-pound box of
Okay.
books. Because I'm selling individually. I'm not doing big lots. Probably the biggest lot of books I've done is the 6-volume set of the Winston Churchill Second World War stuff, which is a 16 by 12 by 8 box, and it's 20 odd pounds. It goes media rate, still pretty cheap. So no, I haven't really run into any issues like that.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So also CDs. I want to talk a little bit about CDs.
It's in the name. We got to talk about it, right?
Exactly. So, okay, side question: which do you prefer, books or CDs? If you had to pick one.
That's tough because books typically bring a little higher average selling price, but they're a lot more work to list.
Okay.
A CD, I'm probably taking 4 pictures, front, back, one side. And if it's used, I'll open it up and take a picture of the, the booklet and the CD, and that's it. I'm done. I'm moving on to the next thing. Where with a book, there's a lot more that goes into the grading and the description. So it's kind of a wash, really, in the end, in terms of what you get back out of your time investment. So I've always been a huge music nut. Obviously, I owned a record store, Galaxy CDs, back in the day. That's where the name came from. So
Oh,
I love music and I love CDs. So I suppose, if you put a gun to my head, that would be my choice. But purely from a business standpoint, it's about 6-1, half dozen the other.
Okay. Okay. And then sourcing books and CDs, is there a difference there, or do you source, I don't know, from music stores, record stores, as opposed to estate sales?
No, the only time I've really sourced from a record store, I went, I've actually got a YouTube video. I think it's titled, "Would You Buy 8,000 CDs for Your Reselling Business?" So I had gone down to the little vinyl shop here in town just months and months. It was like February. And I left them my card and I said, "Hey, I used to own Galaxy CDs up on the other end of the block. And I know you guys don't do CDs, you just do vinyl. If you ever have anybody that comes in that wants to sell a collection and you guys aren't interested, here's my contact information. Have them give me a call and I'd be happy to look at it." And nothing. I mean, crickets for like 4 months. And then out of the blue, I get this call, a number I don't recognize, which normally I don't answer, but I went ahead and picked up the call, and it was the guy from the record store.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're not going to believe this, but I just literally got your note." So this is like, I gave him the note in February, and this is the end of June. And he says, "I've got, I think, a couple thousand CDs I would be interested in getting rid of." Like, "I'll come down and take a look at them after the 4th of July weekend or whatever." And I walk in there and it's like 50 U-Haul boxes.
Wow.
And I knew right away it was way more than a couple thousand CDs. But that's the only time I've done like sourcing at a record store.
Okay. Well, that's a huge, I mean, how is that? Because I know you have a video on this. How's that going so far?
It has been ridiculously good. When I posted that, and I posted it on Facebook and everything else, and kind of the general consensus was, you're out of your mind. I wouldn't want to do all that. And it's been a ton of work, obviously sorting through 8,000 pieces. But last I checked, I've sold about 10% of it, probably something like 800 pieces out of it. And I've done about $6,300 in business, and I paid $300 for the whole lot. So yeah, it's that definitely goes in the win column.
Yeah, so it's like knocking it out of multiple parks. I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, in terms of just wrapping my brain around how you even started to move those boxes and the time it took just to source, how long before you finished listing your first item, from the time you bought it to listing your first item?
Probably a couple of days, because what I was doing with that, I had them out in the garage, and I would get up in the morning and I would kind of do my normal daily routine. So I'd do my shipments, and I'd do, 15, 20 listings of whatever I had that I was working on. Then I'd go out to the garage and I would start sorting that out. So I was making essentially two piles. These are the ones that I can retail for $10 or more, and these are the ones that are $10 or less. And I didn't want to mess with those other than in maybe lots. So every day I had some kind of a pile of stuff that was sellable inventory, and I'd take some of those in and I would list some. So kind of every day I was listing a handful of them.
Okay.
One of the first ones I came across ended up being a really, really rare promo CD that essentially paid for the entire lot. And that was within, I think, probably 2 weeks of me having bought it. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, and I know you have a video on this also in terms of organizing those CDs compared to how you organize your books. How do you even kind of begin to organize 8,000 CDs so it's easy to, list and ship and get to after the fact?
Right. So the non-listed ones are just in piles, like I said, sorted by the ones I want to list individually and the ones that are going in kind of wholesale lots. And then I'll bring them in and I'll have like a tray that I've already pre-labeled, with an inventory location. So G13 or whatever it is. And I'll list the CDs and I'll put them in that tray with that, using that as the custom SKU on eBay. So I know where it's at. And then within the tray, as I'm doing them, I'm alphabetizing them. So when I'm done and that tray is full, they're already in alphabetical order. I store that tray with the rest of the series of the G trays. And, if somebody buys it, I know right where to go to get it. They're in alphabetical order and I can pull it and get on to the next thing. So
okay.
If you do that work up front, it's not so bad kind of on the back end.
Yeah.
Trying to find one CD out of 8,000. If you didn't have some kind of system, man, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, that sounds like hell. I mean, with books, because obviously they're heavier a lot of times, how do you, I guess, organize those, especially if you have bigger, heavier books?
Right. I'm essentially doing the same thing. Those are all going into either a box or a Rubbermaid tote that gets a label. And, where these trays for the CDs might have 100 or 120, the books might have 20 or 30. So I'm not alphabetizing those because it's not that big a box to go through. But everything has an inventory location that's matched with a custom SKU on eBay. So when somebody buys, history of the Second World War that's in TR11, I can just go right to that box and open it up and pull them out, and I'm ready to roll.
Jeez, it sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds like you got it organized there. So
yeah, once you come up with a plan and you can kind of stick to it and you know what your system is, it's not that bad. It is, and again, I do this full time, so it's not like I've got anything else to do. I have the time to sort and store and categorize and do whatever I want that makes things easier on the back. So
okay, that's cool. And I know you're not a huge record seller, but records have always intrigued me, not just the buying and selling of them, but also the packaging. So I guess first of all, you had a video where you talked about some old, I think they were 78s.
Yeah.
I have a similar, I have to go back and look, but they look very similar to the ones you got. and I haven't even listed them yet. So how did you list those individually? Did you list them as a lot? How did you go about dealing with those?
So far, I've listed those all individually. I bought a couple times pretty big collections, not huge, but 50 to 80 pieces.
Okay.
And again, same kind of philosophy. If I can sell it for $10 or more, I'm probably going to list it individually. That's kind of my break point. I know a lot of people have one that's higher than that, but for most of this stuff, I've got less than $1 in it. So $10 is I'm still making $2 or $3 on them. And I've got daily churn. I'm doing 15, 18 orders a day, every day. So that makes sense for me to do it that way.
Okay. And I guess with records, it's slightly different in terms of grading. This is something I don't really know anything about. But how would you grade a average record, I would say? Something that's kind of maybe not warped or anything like that, but definitely not prime.
Anything that's got any kind of markings on it immediately to me is probably dropped down to at best very good.
Okay.
Like we talked about, CDs are pretty straightforward. Even within eBay, it's acceptable, good, very good, like new or new.
Yeah.
But in records, man, it's good, good plus, very good minus. I mean, there's just all these different gradations, and what you think might be very good, the guy that you ship it to may say, this is garbage. It's all scratch. You know what I mean? So it's a very difficult thing to do. I've got a buddy of mine. He does records. He's been doing it for years. He's really good at it. I tend to err on the side of caution. Like I said, if it's legitimately probably very good, I'll call it good, and then kind of explain that in the description why I came to that conclusion. I've never had anything but positive feedback about this was better than I expected kind of thing when I got it. So I think that's paid off for me. But yeah, grading records is a nightmare. It's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of records, because it's such a sketchy, fine line about where that thing really should fall.
Oh yeah. And then like shipping them also. I mean, to use like the right a Uline record shipper. I don't know if they even have those, but or do you kind of do your own makeshift thing?
For regular like 33s and 45s, those go in the standard record mailers, but you can't do that with the 78s.
Yeah.
Because they're so brittle and fragile, which I found out the hard way. So essentially, I will pack them in one of those record mailers anyway. I'll usually wrap it in paper and then put some bubble wrap and some cardboard stiffener, and then it goes in that thing. And then I will put that in a larger box with a lot of void fill, so crumpled up newspapers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that there's something to absorb shock, because if anything gets into where that record is, the odds are on a 78, it's going to damage it. So that's the downside to 78s. They're a lot more work to pack and ship than conventional records.
Yeah, it sounds like, records scare the heck out of me. I think I've sold a couple of new ones, and that's about it.
Right.
I basically stay, not only because I don't know which ones are better, but just the idea of shipping them, having them delivered, and something happening to them.
Yeah. If I had like an antique booth or something, all of my records would go to the antique booth. I don't know if you're familiar with Cincinnati Picker on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what he does. I don't think he sells any records online, unless maybe they're new. Everything goes to his antique booths, and that's ideally probably the way you would do it. That way, the potential buyer they can pull it out and look at it and say, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. You're not in that situation where, it gets clear across the country and the guy's like, this isn't quite what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we are done with our outline there. So I wanted to know if you could just kind of remind everybody where your YouTube channel was and your podcast and how they can reach you.
Yeah. So galaxycdsrocks.com. There's links there pretty much to everything. My eBay store, my Teespring store. You can get some really rad Galaxy CDs merch. The YouTube channel is Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips. The podcast is Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips, a reselling podcast. And it's available pretty much anywhere you would want to listen to podcasts. And then on Instagram, it's Galaxy CDs Rocks.
Excellent. And I'm going to have all the info down in the show notes. This is going to be on YouTube eventually, but it's going to be podcast version first. So you'll be able to see all of those links. And
Oh, we almost made it to the end.
I just
and
really
I
wanted to thank Ryan out his podcast and his YouTube. Yeah, sorry. I apologize. That's why I was speeding up a little bit. But please check out his YouTube channel and his podcast. And until the next one, I really want to say thank you for listening to the Reselling podcast. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks.